For 15 years, she cleaned offices, emptied trash, and remained invisible, until the CEO's cruelty forced Marla Washington to reveal the secret that would shake Sterling Innovations to its core. She wasn't just a janitor, she was the owner. The story opens at dawn outside Sterling Innovations, a gleaming corporate tower that reaches toward the sky like a monument to success. The company's gold logo catches the first rays of sunlight as employees begin arriving for another day. But while executives park in covered spaces near the front entrance, a modest sedan pulls into the far corner of the employee lot. Inside the car sits Marla Washington, a 55-year-old black woman whose janitor's uniform bears the Sterling Innovations logo. Despite the early hour, her eyes are alert and thoughtful as she gazes at the building before her. There's something in her expression that suggests she sees more than just glass and steel. She sees a legacy, a history, and perhaps secrets that no one else knows. Another day, another dollar, she murmurs to herself, checking her watch. 15 years of dollars. The weight of those years seems to settle on her shoulders as she gathers her thermos and steps out into the cool morning air. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. At the service entrance, Tommy, the young security guard, barely glances up from his newspaper as Marla badges in. It's a routine they've performed countless times, but Marla always takes a moment to ask about his son's progress in college. Her genuine interest lights up Tommy's face as he proudly shares that his boy made the dean's list again. "You know, you're the only one around here who remembers to ask," he tells her, and Marla's smile carries both warmth and a hint of sadness as she replies, "Education is everything, honey, everything." As Marla moves through the empty hallways, her footsteps echo in the silence. She knows every corner of this building, every office, every secret. For 15 years, she has been invisible to most, just another member of the cleaning staff who arrives before dawn and works while others sleep. But invisibility, she has learned, can be a powerful tool. The executive floor of Sterling Innovations is a world apart from the service corridors where Marla spends her nights. Here, in a corner office overlooking the city, sits Richard Blake, the company's CEO. At 45, Blake is everything Marla is not in the eyes of the corporate world: white, male, entitled, and utterly convinced of his own superiority. His office is a shrine to his ego, filled with awards he's claimed credit for and photos of himself with politicians and celebrities. Blake arrives each morning at precisely 9 a.m., never earlier, often later. He treats the building like his personal kingdom and its employees like subjects who exist solely for his benefit. To him, people like Marla are furniture, functional but forgettable. In 15 years, he has never learned her name, never acknowledged her presence beyond occasionally complaining about the cleanliness of his office. This morning is no different. Blake storms through the reception area, barking orders at his assistant Jennifer about schedule changes and demanding his usual coffee. His voice carries the particular arrogance of a man who has never been truly challenged, never been told no, and never been forced to face consequences for his actions. "Get Davidson on the phone," he snaps at Jennifer. "I want to know why the Morrison account numbers are down. And tell facilities that whoever cleaned my office last night missed the spot on my window. I don't pay them to half-ass their jobs." Jennifer, a young woman fresh out of college, nods quickly and begins making calls. She's learned not to point out Blake's unreasonable demands or his tendency to blame others for problems he created. Like so many others in the building, she keeps her head down and does her job, hoping to survive another day in Blake's crosshairs. But Blake's tyranny extends far beyond personal rudeness. Over the past year, he has implemented cost-cutting measures that have devastated the janitorial staff. Hours have been cut, benefits reduced, and several long-term employees have been fired without cause. Blake justifies these decisions as streamlining operations, but the real reason is to pad his own bonus and impress the board of directors with short-term profit increases. What Blake doesn't know, what none of them know, is that every decision he makes, every cruel comment he utters, every injustice he perpetrates is being witnessed by someone who has the power to stop him. Marla Washington doesn't just clean the offices. She sees the documents left on desks, overhears the phone calls, and understands the true cost of Blake's leadership. As weeks pass, Blake's behavior grows increasingly toxic. During a staff meeting, he publicly humiliates a young accountant for a minor error, reducing her to tears in front of her colleagues. When the marketing team presents a campaign designed to highlight the company's commitment to diversity, Blake dismisses it with barely concealed contempt, asking why they're wasting time on that PC nonsense. The breaking point comes on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Maria Santos, a 62-year-old janitor who has worked alongside Marla for 8 years, approaches Blake's office to empty the trash. Maria has been battling cancer, and the recent cuts to the health insurance plan have left her struggling to afford treatment. She moves more slowly than she used to, but she takes pride in her work and has never missed a day. As Maria carefully cleans around Blake's desk, he explodes without warning. A coffee stain on his desk, likely caused by his own carelessness, becomes the catalyst for a verbal assault that shocks even his hardened assistant. Blake calls Maria worthless, questions her competence, and suggests that people like her don't belong in his building. The racial undertones are unmistakable, and Maria's dignity crumbles under the attack. "Maybe it's time we found someone who can actually do the job," Blake snarls, his voice carrying through the office. "I'm tired of having incompetent people drag down this company's standards." Maria hurries out, tears streaming down her face, while Blake turns back to his computer as if nothing happened. For him, it was just another minor irritation in his day. For Maria, it was a devastating assault on her worth as a human being. But Marla Washington witnessed everything from the hallway where she was replacing burned-out light bulbs. She watched Blake's cruelty, saw Maria's pain, and felt something inside her snap. For 15 years, she has endured similar treatment, watched good people suffer under Blake's leadership, and kept her silence. But no more. That night, after the building empties and only the cleaning crew remains, Marla makes a decision that will change everything. She walks to the executive elevator, the one she's never been allowed to use, and presses the button for the top floor. It's time for Richard Blake to learn who really owns Sterling Innovations. The next morning arrives like any other, but tension crackles through the air like electricity before a storm. Blake arrives at his usual time, coffee in hand, completely unaware that his world is about to collapse. He settles into his leather chair and begins his daily routine of emails and phone calls, secure in his belief that he is the master of his domain. At exactly 10 a.m., his intercom buzzes. Jennifer's voice comes through, unusually hesitant. "Mr. Blake? There's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent." Blake doesn't look up from his computer. "Tell whoever it is to make an appointment. I'm busy." "Sir," she says her name is Washington. Marla Washington. And she says she's the owner of the company. Blake's fingers freeze over his keyboard. He looks up slowly, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and then anger. "What kind of joke is this? Send security up here right now." I don't know what game this cleaning lady thinks she's playing, but the office door opens and Marla Washington steps inside. But this is not the invisible janitor who has cleaned Blake's office for 15 years. This woman carries herself with quiet authority, her spine straight, her eyes fixed on Blake with unwavering intensity. She's still wearing her uniform, but something fundamental has changed. The mask of invisibility has been removed. "Hello, Richard," she says, her voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. "We need to talk." Blake's face flushes red with rage. "How dare you walk into my office? Security! Security!" Marla doesn't flinch. Instead, she reaches into her pocket and pulls out a manila folder, placing it carefully on Blake's desk. "Security won't be coming, Richard. I gave them the day off. With pay, of course. Something you've forgotten how to do." Blake stares at the folder as if it might explode. "I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but you're fired. Pack your things and get out of my building." Marla's smile is patient, almost pitying. "Your building? Richard, I think you need to look at what's in that folder." Against his better judgment, Blake opens the folder. Inside are legal documents, stock certificates, and financial records that make his blood run cold. His eyes scan the papers, his face growing paler with each line he reads. The documents tell a story he never knew. The true ownership structure of Sterling Innovations, hidden behind layers of trusts and holding companies. "This can't be real," he whispers, but his voice lacks conviction. Marla settles into the chair across from his desk, the same chair where countless employees have sat to receive his judgment. "My grandfather started this company in 1952, Richard. Marcus Washington was a brilliant engineer who held 17 patents. But because he was a black man in the 1950s, he couldn't get investors or contracts. So he created a shell company, hired a white front man, and built Sterling Innovations from nothing." Blake's hands shake as he continues reading. The papers document a complex ownership structure that has been maintained for 7 decades, passing from Marcus Washington to his son David, and then to his granddaughter Marla. Through trusts and intermediaries, the Washington family has maintained controlling interest in Sterling Innovations while remaining completely hidden from public view. "When my father passed 15 years ago, I inherited everything," Marla continues. "I could have walked into the boardroom and claimed my birthright, but I wanted to understand this company from the ground up. I wanted to see how it really operated when no one was watching." The implications hit Blake like a physical blow. For 15 years, the woman he treated as invisible furniture has been the actual owner of the company. Every cruel comment, every dismissive gesture, every act of casual racism has been witnessed by the person who holds his career in her hands. Blake's initial shock gives way to desperate calculation. His mind races through 15 years of interactions with Marla, trying to remember if he ever treated her with basic human decency. The memories that surface make him sick, the times he complained about her work, the occasions when he acted as if she didn't exist, the casual cruelty that he justified as simply maintaining standards. "Look," he says, his voice taking on a pleading tone that sounds foreign coming from him. "If this is all true, and I'm not saying I believe it, but if it's true, then we can work something out. I've been good for this company. Profits are up. Efficiency is improved." Marla holds up a hand, silencing him. "Profits built on whose backs, Richard? You've cut janitorial staff by 30% while giving yourself a 40% raise. You've eliminated healthcare benefits for part-time workers while renovating your office twice. You call that efficiency?" Stands and walks to the window, looking out over the city. "Do you know what I've learned in 15 years of watching? I've learned that character isn't what you do when people are looking. It's what you do when you think no one is watching. And Richard, your character is rotten to the core." Blake scrambles around his desk, his desperation now fully visible. "Please, you have to understand, I was just doing my job, making tough decisions. That's what leadership requires." "Leadership?" Marla turns back to face him, and her expression is devastating in its quiet disappointment. "You made Maria Santos cry yesterday, a 62-year-old woman fighting cancer, and you called her worthless, for a coffee stain that you probably made yourself." The specific reference to Maria's humiliation hits Blake like a slap. He realizes that Marla doesn't just know about his behavior in general. She knows about every specific act of cruelty, every moment of casual inhumanity. "You want to know what real leadership looks like?" Marla continues. "It's Maria coming to work every day despite her illness because she takes pride in her job. It's Tommy asking about everyone's families because he cares about the people around him. It's Jennifer staying late to fix your mistakes without complaining or taking credit when things go right. She walks back to the desk and picks up the folder. I've spent 15 years documenting everything, Richard. Every decision you've made, every person you've hurt, every dollar you've stolen from people who actually work for a living. I have enough evidence to destroy you in court, in the press, and in the industry. Blake collapses back into his chair, the fight draining out of him. What do you want? Marla's answer is swift and final. I want you gone. Today. Clear out your office, turn in your company car, and never set foot in this building again. Consider yourself lucky that I'm not pressing charges for the harassment, discrimination, and hostile work environment you've created. You can't do this, Blake whispers. But even he doesn't believe it anymore. Richard Blake, you are terminated from Sterling Innovations, effective immediately. Your severance package will consist of exactly what you gave Maria Santos when you fired her last month. Nothing. Word of Blake's firing spreads through Sterling Innovations like wildfire. But the details remain a mystery to most employees. The official announcement simply states that Blake has decided to pursue other opportunities and that new leadership will be announced shortly. But for the janitorial staff, the security guards, and the other invisible workers who keep the building running, whispers carry a different story. Maria Santos returns to work the following Monday to find an envelope on her cleaning cart. Inside is a letter informing her that her health benefits have been fully restored, retroactive to cover her recent medical expenses, along with a personal note apologizing for the treatment she endured. She shows the letter to Marla, tears in her eyes, but Marla just smiles and says she heard the new management is more understanding. Over the next few weeks, changes begin to appear throughout the company. The janitorial staff's hours are restored, benefits are expanded, and a new employee assistance program is launched. A diversity and inclusion initiative is implemented, not as a publicity stunt, but as a genuine effort to address systemic inequities. The company cafeteria begins serving food from local minority-owned restaurants, and a scholarship program is established for employees' children. Jennifer, Blake's former assistant, is promoted to a management position in the communications department. During her first team meeting, she shares her vision for a company culture based on respect and collaboration rather than fear and intimidation. She speaks with the authority of someone who has seen the worst of corporate leadership and is determined to do better. Tommy, the security guard, is offered training opportunities to advance within the company. When he expresses interest in the IT department, he finds himself enrolled in certification courses paid for by Sterling Innovations. His son calls from college to tell him about a scholarship offer that will cover his remaining tuition, funded by a new educational foundation established by an anonymous donor. Through it all, Marla continues her work as a janitor, maintaining the carefully constructed identity that has served her so well. But now her invisibility serves a different purpose. She moves through the building, observing the changes, listening to conversations, and ensuring that the transformation she has initiated continues to grow. 3 months after Blake's departure, Sterling Innovations holds its first all-hands meeting in years. The auditorium is packed with employees from every level of the organization, from executive assistants to maintenance workers. For the first time in company history, the janitorial staff is invited to attend during work hours, with their wages paid despite missing their regular duties. The interim CEO, brought in from outside the company, takes the stage and begins speaking about a new vision for Sterling Innovations. She talks about building a company culture based on dignity, respect, and shared success. She announces profit-sharing programs, expanded healthcare benefits, and a new policy that ties executive compensation to employee satisfaction scores. But the most significant announcement comes at the end of the meeting. The interim CEO reveals that Sterling Innovations has been purchased by a family trust that has chosen to remain anonymous. The new owners, she explains, are committed to transforming the company into a model for ethical business practices. The New ownership has made it clear that our success will be measured not just by our profits, but by how we treat every person who contributes to this company's success, she announces. From our executive team to our maintenance staff, every employee will be valued and respected. As the meeting concludes, employees file out buzzing with excitement and hope. Many have never experienced a workplace where they felt truly valued, and the changes promised seem almost too good to be true. But in the weeks that follow, every promise is kept, every policy implemented exactly as announced. Marla watches from the back of the auditorium as her employees, because they are her. Employees, though none of them know it, react to the news. She sees Maria Santos smiling for the first time in months. She notices Jennifer standing straighter, speaking with confidence she never displayed under Blake's leadership. She observes Tommy taking notes, planning for the future his family now has access to. That evening, alone in the executive conference room she has cleaned countless times, Marla allows herself a moment of reflection. On the table before her are the latest financial reports, employee satisfaction surveys, and performance metrics. Sterling Innovations is thriving under its new policies, proving that treating people with dignity and respect isn't just morally right, it's good business. She thinks about her grandfather, Marcus Washington, who built this company despite facing obstacles that would have destroyed a lesser man. She thinks about her father, David, who maintained the family's hidden ownership through decades of social change and corporate evolution. And she thinks about her own journey, from invisible janitor to revealed owner, and the power that comes from truly understanding every aspect of the business you lead. Part 8. The Legacy Revealed. 6 months. After Blake's firing, Sterling Innovations is featured on the cover of Business Weekly magazine as the company that got it right. The article details the remarkable transformation of corporate culture and the anonymous ownership structure that has enabled such rapid change. Industry analysts are baffled by the company's ability to increase both profits and employee satisfaction simultaneously, calling it a business miracle. The article includes interviews with employees at every level, all praising the new culture of respect and opportunity. Maria Santos is quoted extensively, sharing her story of going from feeling worthless and invisible to being recognized as Employee of the Month. Jennifer speaks about the leadership training program that has prepared her for promotion to Director of Communications. Tommy describes the educational opportunities that have transformed his family's future. But perhaps the most telling quote comes from an unnamed employee who says, "It's like someone finally realized that the people who clean the offices and guard the doors and answer the phones are human beings with families and dreams and dignity. Whoever is making these decisions understands what it's like to be invisible in corporate America." As the article circulates, Marla continues her dual existence. By day, she cleans offices and empties trash cans, maintaining the identity that has served her so well for 15 years. By night, she reviews reports, approves budgets, and makes decisions that affect hundreds of lives. The irony is not lost. On her, she has more real power as an invisible janitor than Blake ever had as the visible CEO. The transformation of Sterling Innovations doesn't go unnoticed by Richard Blake, who has struggled to find employment since his termination. His reputation in the industry has been quietly but effectively destroyed through whispered conversations and shared experiences. Other executives who might have hired him have heard stories from former Sterling Innovations employees about his leadership style, and none want to take the risk. Blake spends his days in a small apartment, far from the luxury he once enjoyed, wondering how his carefully constructed world collapsed so quickly. He never discovers the truth about Marla's identity, never learns that the woman he treated as furniture was actually the owner of the company. In his mind, he was simply the victim of corporate politics and bad timing, unable to accept responsibility for his own downfall. Part 9. The Full Circled Years. After Richard Blake's firing, Sterling Innovations celebrates its 70th anniversary. The celebration is held not in an exclusive hotel ballroom, but in the company cafeteria, with every employee invited regardless of position or seniority. The catering comes from minority-owned businesses throughout the city, and the decorations highlight the company's history and diversity. During the celebration, the interim CEO makes a special announcement. For the first time, the company's ownership structure is revealed publicly. She tells the story of Marcus Washington, the brilliant engineer who founded Sterling Innovations, despite facing systemic racism and discrimination. She describes how the Washington family has maintained ownership for 7 decades while remaining hidden from public view. Today, she announces, we are honored to finally meet the woman who has guided our transformation, the granddaughter of our founder, and the true owner of Sterling Innovations. Marla Washington steps forward, no longer wearing her janitor's uniform, but dressed in a simple business suit that commands respect without ostentation. The room falls silent as employees recognize the woman who has cleaned their offices, emptied their trash, and witnessed their daily lives for 15 years. The silence breaks as Tommy, the security guard, begins to applaud. His clapping is joined by Maria Santos, then Jennifer, then every person in the room. The applause grows to a thunderous ovation that seems to shake the building itself. But it's not just applause for Marla's revelation, it's applause for the dignity she has restored to their workplace, the respect she has shown for every employee, and the courage she has demonstrated in fighting for what is right. When the applause finally dies down, Marla steps to the microphone. Her voice is clear and strong as she addresses her employees directly for the first time. My grandfather used to tell me that you can't truly lead people unless you understand their struggles, she says. For 15 years, I've had the privilege of working alongside the most dedicated, hard-working people I've ever known. You taught me that real leadership isn't about commanding from an executive suite. It's about serving alongside the people who make everything possible. She looks around the room, making eye contact with individuals she has worked with, learned from, and fought for. Richard Blake saw you as disposable. I see you as the foundation of everything we've built. This company doesn't belong to me. It belongs to all of us, and together we're going to show the world what business can be when it's built on respect, dignity, and shared success. Part 10. The New Beginning. In the months following the anniversary celebration, Sterling Innovations becomes a case study in business schools across the country. The Washington model of employee ownership and inclusive leadership is studied and emulated by companies seeking to transform their own cultures. Marla Washington is invited to speak at conferences and symposiums, sharing her story and her philosophy of leadership through service. But despite her newfound visibility, Marla never completely abandons her janitor's uniform. One day each month, she returns to the cleaning rotation, working alongside Maria, Tommy, and the other employees who kept the company running during its darkest days. These shifts remind her of the lessons she learned during her 15 years of invisibility, and they keep her connected to the people who make Sterling Innovations successful. The company continues to thrive under Marla's visible leadership. Employee satisfaction scores remain at record highs, while productivity and profits continue to grow. The scholarship program has sent dozens of employees' children to college, and the Employee Assistance Fund has helped families through medical emergencies, natural disasters, and other crises. Richard Blake's story, meanwhile, serves as a cautionary tale whispered in corporate boardrooms across the country. His fall from power becomes legendary, though few know the complete truth of how it happened. He eventually finds work with a small consulting firm, his authority and arrogance significantly diminished by the experience of losing everything he thought he controlled. As for Sterling Innovations, the company continues to grow and evolve under Marla's leadership. New policies prioritize environmental sustainability, community engagement, and social justice. The company becomes known not just for its products, but for its values and its commitment to being a force for positive change in the world. Maria Santos, now in her late 60s, continues to work part-time while mentoring younger employees. Her cancer is in remission, and she credits not just the restored healthcare benefits, but the reduced stress of working in a respectful environment for her improved health. She often tells new hires about the dark days under Blake's leadership, ensuring that the lessons of that period are never forgotten. Jennifer, now Director of Communications, has become one of the company's most visible advocates for corporate social responsibility. She speaks at industry conferences about the transformation of Sterling innovations, always emphasizing that change is possible when leadership is committed to treating every employee with dignity and respect. Tommy completed his IT certification and now heads the company's cybersecurity division. His son graduated college debt-free thanks to the Washington Foundation scholarship and has joined Sterling Innovations as a junior engineer. The family's transformation from struggling working class to middle-class prosperity represents the kind of opportunity that Marla envisioned when she began changing the company. Epilogue. The lasting impact. 5 years after Richard Blake's firing, Marla Washington sits in her office. Not the ostentatious executive suite that Blake once occupied, but a modest space on the same floor as the other department heads. The walls are decorated not with ego-driven awards, but with thank-you letters from employees, photos from company events, and her grandfather's original engineering patents. On her desk is a framed photo from the company's 70th anniversary celebration, showing her surrounded by employees who had become family. Next to it sits a well-worn copy of her grandfather's journal, where Marcus Washington wrote about his dreams for a company that would provide good jobs and opportunity for people regardless of their background.